Arizona Theater Matters presents Unyielding Voices, Frances Munns and the 20th Century Fight for Women's Rights in Arizona. A woman with a rich complexion and black hair that falls just above her shoulders wears a white top. She faces the camera with a confident and expressive presence, signing with graceful, animated movements as her face lights up with emotion.
Well, look at you showing up today. I knew you'd make it. I'm Frances Willard Munns, speaking to you from, let's call it the ethers. It's a place where time doesn't matter and hindsight is always 20/20. From here, I get to look back on the threads of history and what a tangled, fascinating mess they are. Arizona, my Arizona. Now, I wasn't born here. California holds that dubious distinction. But Arizona wrapped me in its wild beauty, and before I knew it, I was as fierce an Arizonan as they come. Let's start at the beginning. Long before Arizona became Arizona, this land was and remains home to many nations: the Tohono O'odham, Navajo, Hopi, Apache, Kokapa, and so many more. Their stories, traditions, and resilience are woven into the very soil. They've survived thousands of years of hardships and triumphs in this tough, dazzling place. Over time, Spanish settlers and indigenous communities intersected, giving rise to a new cultural identity: the mestizo. When Mexico won its independence from Spain, these communities brought their deep-rooted traditions to what would one day become Arizona. Mexican families, many with mestizo heritage, cultivated the land, herded cattle, and built vibrant towns that became the backbone of our borderlands. Their influence is everywhere, from the music in our streets to the flavors on our plates. Next came settlers from across the globe, miners, ranchers, and farmers chasing opportunity. Germans, Irish, Italians, Spanish, and Basques brought their customs and traditions, leaving their mark on Arizona's industries and communities. And let's not forget the African American families. Many came from the South, bringing expertise in agriculture. They built churches, schools, and businesses, creating neighborhoods that thrived in the face of adversity. Waves brought Chinese immigrants, many as laborers for railroads and mining camps, and Japanese families who cultivated Arizona's farms, especially after World War II. Each new group added to the rich tapestry of Arizona's culture. I was born in 1866, a pioneer baby from Sacramento, California. My parents raised me to believe that hard work and fairness could carry you far, and I carried those values all the way to Arizona. I wore a lot of hats in my life: school teacher, wife, mother, suffragist, and yes, even state senator. Imagine it. A grandmother stepping into the state senate in 1914. You should have seen the looks on their faces. But I didn't get there by accident. Women in my time were expected to be invisible, quietly doing all the heavy lifting without making a fuss. Well, I wasn't interested in being invisible. Women were paying taxes, raising families, and building communities, yet we had no say in the laws that governed us. That was horse twaddle then, and it's horse twaddle now. So we organized. And honey, let me tell you, it wasn't easy. History doesn't move in straight lines. It zigzags like a toddler on a sugar high. For every step forward, there's someone pushing us back. But we didn't give up. From where I stand, I've seen your world, this world. You've made so much progress. Women in Arizona and across the nation don't just vote, they lead. But I also see a lot of the same struggles we faced: inequities, high levels of maternal and infant mortality, poor education outcomes, and far too many voices left unheard. That's why I'm here. Together we're going to walk through a timeline of Arizona's movement for women's suffrage. Let me show you how we did it. The sweat, the defeats, the triumphs, and yes, the compromises we made along the way. Through our stories, you'll see how far we've come and how much further we have to go, because democracy isn't a gift, it's a responsibility. Buckle up! The fight for women's suffrage in Arizona began long before I rolled up my sleeves and joined the fray. It started with brave women and men who dared to demand something extraordinary, a democracy that included everyone. In 1883, the first women's suffrage bill was introduced in the Arizona Territorial Legislature. It didn't pass, 7 votes to 3, but women fought and won the right to vote in school elections. That victory wasn't handed to them. It was earned through effort and advocacy. Imagine it, mothers shaping the future of Arizona's children through education, yet still voiceless in every other matter of governance. And still, the seeds of change were planted. Across the nation, extraordinary leaders like Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Matilda Joslyn Gage were stirring hearts and minds. Their courage and intellect rippled far beyond the bustling cities of the East, reaching Arizona's dusty trails and rugged frontier towns. Their ideas inspired pioneers like Josephine Brawley Hughes, Arizona's first suffragist. Josephine wasn't just inspired, she was determined. She wrote fiery editorials, rallied her neighbors, and formed the first Arizona suffrage organization in 1891. Working hand in hand with the National American Woman Suffrage Association, she began establishing clubs across the territory. But progress was slow, and the road ahead was steep. Between 1893 and 1897, suffrage bills were introduced again and again. Each time, Josephine and her allies fought for justice, presenting their case to the legislators with courage and reason, and each time defeated in committee again and again. Josephine was strong on paper, but in life she was not a forceful person. Under her leadership, the movement stalled. But by the late 1890s, a new and somewhat unexpected ally joined the movement, the Women's Christian Temperance Union. Times were hard, brutally hard. This was long before the 8-hour workday, before Alcoholics Anonymous or rehab programs. Men worked grueling hours, often in dangerous conditions. And when they finally stumbled out of the mines, fields, or factories, they turned to alcohol for relief. And who could blame them? Liquor sellers knew exactly how to exploit their exhaustion and pain, setting up saloons near workplaces to profit from the laborers' misery. But drinking came at a price. Too often, men drank away the family's wages, leaving women and children to bear the brunt. Poverty, violence, and hunger crept into homes. The women of the WCTU saw this suffering and believed alcohol was at the root of it all. Their slogan was, "For God, home, and every land," and they worked tirelessly to ban the sale and consumption of alcohol. At first glance, you might think temperance and suffrage were separate causes. But the women of the WCTU understood something crucial. Without political power, without the ability to vote, they couldn't shape the laws needed to protect their families. Suffrage wasn't their first goal, but it became their most powerful tool. Their support wasn't without controversy. Many suffragists felt uneasy about aligning with a movement so narrowly focused on temperance. Our vision was broader: education, labor rights, equality. But the WCTU brought organizational strength, resources, and a fierce determination that we couldn't ignore. Together, we built momentum. While we wrestled with these challenges in Arizona, the world was moving too. In 1893, New Zealand became the first country where women won the right to vote. That same year, the WCTU expanded its reach globally, establishing chapters as far away as South Africa and India. It was a reminder that the fight for justice often brings together unlikely allies. By the time I joined the movement in 1899, Arizona suffragists had begun to find their footing. Under the leadership of Pauline O'Neill, we organized the first statewide suffrage convention. Imagine my surprise when they elected me as secretary of the Arizona Territorial Women's Suffrage Association. Me! I jumped in with both feet, and we launched an aggressive campaign to secure voting rights for women. The fight for suffrage in Arizona was a collective determination that every voice mattered. Those early years taught me that progress is never easy, but it's always worth it. Let's talk about the fight. No, the struggle for our precious right to vote. I want you to feel the heartbeat of the movement, the adrenaline that fueled those who came before us. This was not a gift handed down. We fought tooth and nail for it, and believe me, it was no easy battle. We rallied, we organized, and we strategized. Think back to 1890, when the National American Woman Suffrage Association was formed. It was a pivotal moment, uniting women across the nation to fight for our fundamental right to participate in democracy. But let's be real here. The path wasn't simple. We encountered fierce opposition from politicians and even some women who felt that the political arena wasn't the place for us. They warned against unladylike behaviors, saying it was improper for women to speak out or demand a voice in governance. So many of us had to choose between conforming to societal norms and breaking the silence for our rights. And you know what? We chose to break the silence. We spoke in public and private spaces, from town halls to living rooms. We wrote letters, organized petitions, and gathered signatures, mobilizing our fellow citizens to our cause. And let me tell you about the importance of those state-level campaigns. While national suffrage was our goal, we knew that local victories laid the groundwork for larger change. Arizona was passionate about empowering women. Our state was one of the first to give women the right to vote through a referendum in 1912. And there were communities across the country lighting that fire of change. But even in these victories, we faced monumental challenges. Localities held tight to traditional roles, questioning women's capabilities to engage in politics. We had to confront that head-on, debunking the myth that women were too emotional or not knowledgeable enough for the political sphere. The key to our success? Finding ways to come together, even when it wasn't perfect. Sometimes we managed to work across class and race, bringing suffragists, labor activists, educators, and homemakers into the same fight. But let me tell you, it wasn't always easy. There were divisions, real ones, and we didn't always get it right. In the South, some suffragists campaigned only for white women's votes, supporting poll taxes and other barriers to keep black women from voting. Here in Arizona, we backed the English literacy test, thinking it would protect democracy, but all it did was shut out immigrants who should have had a voice. Still, when we did manage to link arms and stand side by side, oh, the power of it. Those moments showed us what could happen when we truly tried to build each other up. The work wasn't always perfect, but it taught us something. Real change comes from doing better, together, and making sure we're not leaving anyone behind. Let's pause here to acknowledge that our fight is not finished. The women who won the right to vote began a larger struggle for equality, a struggle that encompasses economic, social, and racial justice, and it rests on our shoulders today. As you sit here today, I challenge you to consider, what legacy will you carry forward? The torch has been passed, and the fire ignited by those brave women shines in each of you. Will you stand up? Will you take on the battles that still lie ahead, fighting for voting rights, equity, and justice for all marginalized communities? The fight for democracy is continuous. It's ongoing. Remember, the essence of democracy is not merely voting. It's ensuring every voice is heard. Let me tell you about Arizona's fight for the vote. It was a battle, a marathon, and yes, sometimes it felt like a game of cat and mouse, but we never gave up. In 1903, we thought we had a breakthrough. A suffrage bill passed both houses of the territorial legislature, but, and it's a big but, Governor Alexander Brody vetoed it. Oh, the frustration! But did we let that stop us? Not a chance. We regrouped. We strengthened our resolve. By 1912, we had a new tool at our disposal, the initiative process. We didn't need to wait for legislators to decide our fate anymore. We could take our case directly to the voters. And let me tell you, it wasn't just the suffragists doing this work. We built a coalition, a scrappy, determined group made up of Republicans, Democrats, miners, farmers, working folks from all over, and even the Mormons. It was a sight to see, people from different walks of life coming together for a common cause. That unity gave us strength, and we were ready to fight for what was right. We knocked on doors, held rallies, and handed out flyers. We engaged everyone we could find. There was something electric about it, a sense of purpose that kept us going even when the odds seemed against us. Now let's not pretend it was easy. Some men laughed in our faces, dismissing us as dreamers. But we weren't dreamers. We were doers. We knew the stakes. Women were building this state. We were raising families, running businesses, teaching in schools. Yet we had no voice in the laws that shaped our lives. That had to change. Finally, November 5th, 1912 arrived, Election Day. I can still remember the tension, the excitement. We held our breath as the votes were counted, and then, victory. 68% of the voters said yes to women's suffrage. Can you believe it? 68%. The performer beams, their gestures expansive with joy. The celebrations were glorious. Women across Arizona, Black, white, Latina, lined up to cast their first ballots. I'll never forget the joy on their faces, the pride in their voices. It was a moment of triumph, a moment of justice. But let's be honest, our victory wasn't shared by everyone. Native American women, on whose lands we stood, were denied citizenship and the right to vote. Immigrant women, particularly those who didn't read English, faced barriers like literacy tests. And here's the hard truth. We suffragists, myself included, supported those tests, thinking they would protect democracy. Instead, they silenced voices that should have been lifted up. Our victory was bittersweet, and the fight wasn't over. Still, that day in 1912 was a turning point. It was proof that change is possible, that collective action can make a difference. And it reminded us that democracy isn't static. It's a living, breathing thing that requires constant care and vigilance. So, what will you do with this legacy? How will you honor the sacrifices of those who came before us? Remember, the fight for justice is never finished. It's passed down, generation to generation, a torch that burns brighter with every hand that carries it. Now let's take a moment to reflect on a truth that stings. Our victory in 1912 was monumental, but it wasn't shared by everyone. The fight for suffrage was not as inclusive as it should have been, and that's something we must reckon with. For women of color, the fight was even harder. Black women like Ida B. Wells and Mary Church Terrell were champions of justice, advocating for suffrage and racial equality. Yet their voices were often sidelined by the larger movement, even as they stood shoulder to shoulder in the fight for justice. Native American women, the original stewards of this land, weren't even granted citizenship until 1924, and here in Arizona they couldn't vote until 1948. Can you imagine? And even then, folks in power found sneaky ways to keep them from the ballot box. How could we celebrate democracy while ignoring the women whose lands we were standing on? And let's not forget immigrant women, especially Mexican-American women, who faced literacy tests and other barriers designed to keep them out of the polling places. Their struggles were immense, and their resilience unmatched. As suffragists, we made compromises. We focused on winning the vote for some, even if it meant leaving others behind. It's a painful truth, but one we must confront. Justice that excludes is not justice. Democracy that silences is not democracy. Still, the fight didn't end in 1912. Black suffragists continued to organize, leading the way during the Civil Rights Movement. Native women, like Sitka Lasha, fought tirelessly to ensure their voices were heard. And immigrant women, they never stopped advocating for their communities, demanding a seat at the table. Their work reminds us that progress is not a straight line. It's a spiral, circling back to unfinished business while moving forward. And it's our duty to ensure that no one is left behind again. So here's my question to you. How will you expand the circle? How will you ensure that democracy belongs to everyone? The work isn't over, and it's calling you. Winning the vote was not the end of the story. It was merely one chapter in an ongoing narrative. We quickly realized there was still so much more to achieve. As suffragists, we made compromises, telling ourselves that some progress for women was better than none at all. But those compromises weigh heavy on my heart. Justice that leaves people behind isn't justice. Winning the vote sparked significant changes. During World War I, women stepped into roles they never imagined, working in factories and serving in uniform. When the war ended, they didn't want to retreat. The 1920s introduced new freedoms and challenges as more women began running for office. Progress was slow, but change is a stubborn force. It requires time and perseverance. Globally, women were rising. In India, they fought for independence alongside Gandhi. In Britain, women pushed for family allowances to combat poverty, while in the U.S., leaders like Fannie Lou Hamer carried the torch for voting rights during the civil rights movement. Every generation faces a choice. Will you fight for justice that includes everyone, or settle for crumbs? Will you stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult, or let fear and division prevail? The fight for equality doesn't end with one vote or one law. It's a never-ending journey, and a journey worth taking. I see you. I see the work you're doing, the protests, the campaigns, and those quiet acts of courage. I see women breaking barriers, men stepping up as allies, and young people demanding a better future. I also see the struggles and setbacks. Change won't always come easily, but it will come, because change is stubborn, and so are we. I didn't see all the changes I wanted, but I have faith. The work we started is in your capable hands. Keep going, keep fighting, keep believing that a better world is not only possible but worth striving for. So, here we are. You've walked with me through Arizona's history, the victories, the struggles, and the choices that shaped our democracy. It's been quite a journey, hasn't it? But let's not forget, this story isn't just mine. It's ours. Let's take a moment to reflect on the road we've traveled together. We started in 1883 with the first women's suffrage bill introduced in the Arizona Territorial Legislature. It failed, but it planted a seed. Over the next decades, trailblazers like Josephine Brawley Hughes and the Arizona Equal Suffrage Association built a movement, rallying, writing, and organizing with unrelenting determination. In 1903, we saw a glimmer of hope when a suffrage bill passed both the House and Senate, only to be vetoed by that stubborn old coot, Governor Brody. The performer smirks, drawing a laugh. But setbacks often forge stronger resolve, and we kept pushing forward. By 1912, we gained the initiative process and took our fight to the voters. With 68% saying yes, Arizona women won the vote, an extraordinary victory unmatched by any other state at the time. But we didn't stop there. In 1914, I became one of the first women in the country to serve in a state senate. We raised the age of consent, improved education, and fought for rural families, laying a foundation for a stronger, more inclusive Arizona. Yet as we celebrated, the work remained unfinished. Native American women were excluded from voting until 1948. Mexican American and immigrant women faced literacy tests designed to silence them. Black women across the nation continued to fight against systemic barriers for decades to come. We must acknowledge these intersecting struggles in our ongoing journey toward equality. But the impact of our work radiated far beyond Arizona. Suffrage inspired a wave of change, globally and locally. From New Zealand to England, from India to South Africa, women rose up, demanding their voices be heard. In the United States, the fight for civil rights and equality picked up where suffrage left off. Each generation has taken up the torch, building on what came before, refusing to give up on the promise of democracy. It's a long, winding road, full of setbacks and compromises. But honey, it's worth every step. I've been honest with you about our compromises, about ways we fell short. Justice that excludes is not justice. Democracy that silences is not democracy. Even as we made progress, we left too many voices unheard. We found common ground across class lines. Farmers, factory workers, teachers, and homemakers came together in the fight for women's suffrage. But race was a tougher bridge to build. Across the country, we transcended class divisions more than racial ones, and that's a hard truth we can't ignore. But here's the thing. Every generation gets a chance to do better, to take the lessons of the past and build a future that's more just, equitable, and inclusive. It's your task now. The work of democracy isn't glamorous. It's knocking on doors in the heat of summer. It's listening to people who don't see the world the way you do. It's standing up when it's easier to sit down. It's showing up again and again because you believe in a future where every voice matters. What will you do with the torch that's been passed to you? Will you fight for a world that leaves no one behind? Will you stand firm for what's right, even when it costs you something? Will you keep going, even when it feels like the road is too long? To help you along this path, remember that change often starts small. It can be as simple as having a conversation with a friend, attending a community meeting, or volunteering for a local organization. Every action counts. From this place beyond time, I see you. I see your struggles, your triumphs, and your determination. I see the seeds you're planting, the movements you're building, and I know they'll bear fruit. You're not just inheritors of this work, you're its stewards. And honey, let me tell you, the world needs you now more than ever. Democracy isn't a gift, it's a responsibility. And it's one worth fighting for. This isn't the end of the story, it's just the next chapter. So go on now. Write it well. Remember, the pen is in your hands. What will you write?
Sign language performer, Bolewa Tife Makanjewola. Voice performer, Janet Ng. Written by Jean Marie Simpson. Mary Melcher, dramaturg. Directed by Jean Marie Simpson and Ololade Ade Kanme. Audio describer, Ray Williams. Made possible by grants from the Arizona Humanities and the Arizona Commission on the Arts. Arizona Theater Matters, universally accessible theater. ArizonaTheaterMatters.org